Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, I had a voice for radio. So today, we are continuing our look at dumb stuff to do with particular Pokemon. We are looking at Marshadow GX. And ladies and gentlemen, I am not even going to scratch the surface of all the fun things we can do with Marshadow, but I'm going to give it a go. We're going to go through some options. But the ability of Marshadow here just lends himself to silliness. The ability here is Shadow Hunt. He can use the attacks of any basic Pokemon in your discard pile, although you've got to have the necessary energy. So, want to use Night March with Marshadow and Expanded? Fine. Put all your Night Marchers in the discard, pop a double colourless energy on Joltik, and now you can be Night Marching for even more damage because you don't need to leave a Night Marcher on the bench. For example, you can pop him into decks, so if you're worried about playing against Darkrai or Drampa or the upcoming Zoroark GX, which is coming out in Shining Legends, then just pop a Marshadow or two in your deck. Remember, you can always get him back with Rescue Stretcher, and Marshadow's got your back. In terms of adaptive Pokemon, you don't really get much more adaptive than Marshadow. But we're looking at some of the sillier things here. Some of the may well not work, but if they do, it's going to be amazing kind of strategies. So might I suggest donking? We talked about donking with Pheromosa the other day, but we could in fact donk with Latios instead. And by Latios, I mean Marshadow. Now, first thing to note, Latios, the normal one, has rotated out, but the good news is that the promo is number 72, meaning it is still legal in the Pokemon trading card game standard format. Alright, that's pretty good. 1 Psychic Energy, 40 damage, but if you go first, you get to use it on your first turn of the game. This is one of the very rare occasions in which you can attack before your opponent gets a chance to do so. Now, if they start a big Pokemon, something like 210 HP Wishy-Washy, for instance, you're unlikely to be able to hit up to that level of damage. But if they start something like a 60 HP Alolan Vulpix, 70 HP Grubbin, etc., now, ladies and gentlemen, now we are talking. So, what do you do here? Well, you need to play some Psychic Energy. You need to get Latios into the discard pile, and you need to get Marshadow into the active with that Psychic Energy attached, and then you can be hitting for 40 damage on turn 1. Now, one advantage Marshadow has over Latios is that you are hitting for weakness on some things. So take something like a Zorua, you're already hitting 80 damage and getting the KO. Take something like a Darkrai or a Drampa, there's a chance you might be able to get a KO using weakness, where Latios would not be able to. And also, we've got Pheromosa coming in these GX Premium collections, the Ultra Beast ones, coming out on the same day as Crimson Invasion in November. And although it does 30 not 40, there is an argument for playing Pheromosa over Latios in this particular build. And the reason is Latios is never hitting anything for weakness, whereas Pheromosa is hitting grass weakness, most notably on Froakie, and as a couple of other people have pointed out, Rockruff. And here's the fun thing, Japan has a 70 HP Rockruff which would survive a hit from Pheromosa on the first turn going first. We don't have that, we've only got 60 HP Rockruff. How weird is that? And anyone who ever gets a Rockruff donked by a Pheromosa is going to be furious about this. Alright, but we're using Latios for the time being. The great thing about Marshadow is that you've got extra options. We've got nice ways to power him up. Firstly, we've got Fighting Fury Bout, so now you've gone from 40 to 50, that's good. And secondly, we've got Strong Energy, so now we're going from 50 to 70. That's quite nice. And then we've got Regirock EX. And if you get 4 of these bad boys down, they mean that all of your fighting Pokemon do an extra 10 damage. All of a sudden, you're up to 110 damage. 40 plus 10 for the Fighting Stadium is 50, plus 20 for the Strong Energy is 70, plus 40 for all the Regirocks is 110. And you only need 90 to take down something like a Darkrai. Now, to be fair, this is a lot to ask for. You've got to get your Latios in the discard. You've got to get a strong energy on Marshadow, and you're only playing 4 of them because it's a special energy. And you've got to get your 4 Regirock out, and you've got to get your Fighting Fury bout. This is why it isn't the best deck in the format. That, and it can't hit the really big numbers. It's not the most reliable thing ever, but when it works, ladies and gentlemen, oh my goodness, it will be fun. And if you want to go into the expanded format, you could even play Fighting Stadium here to pop it up to 130, as long as you were against a Pokemon EX. Okay, well that's not much good because there's a lot of GXs right now. Oh no, wait! We've got a better option here, because you can just use Laser Verbank, and then all of a sudden you're actually hitting for an extra 30 with poison. And if you really want to go over the top in the expanded format, take away the Verbank City Gym. Chuck in a Skyfield instead so you can have 8 bench Pokemon. And then stick Force a Viper on the bench so you're doing 50 with poison rather than 30. And now you're hitting 160 damage. Now this is not the easiest thing to pull off. You'll need the Latios in the discard. You'll need Marshadow in the active with a Fighting Fury belt and a strong energy. Of course, you could always use a Choice Band, so then you'd be up to 180 and KOing EXs and GXs. You'd need the Latios in the discard pile. You'd need all 4 Regirock EX on the bench. And you would need all 4 Viper on the bench. And you would, of course, need to find the Skyfield before you started filling up your bench. And, of course, if you've got 4 Regirock and 4 Viper on the bench, you're not really going to be able to play stuff like Shaman to draw extra cards. Oh yeah, you'd also need the Hypnotoxic Laser. It is a heck of a combo to pull off, ladies and gentlemen. But if you can do it, you're literally doing 160 with a Fighting Fury belt, or 180 with a Choice Band to an EX or a GX for a single energy on a basic Pokemon. That's ridiculous. Or should I say, redonkulous, because this is how you donk. Because remember, you can use this on turn 1 going first. Now, the counter argument here, ladies and gentlemen, is that you don't actually need 180 going first a lot of the time. We are not in a particularly basic heavy format at the moment. Now, you play against something like Darkrai, you're going to need it. You play against something like Drampa, you're going to need it. But if your opponent starts on a Lowland Vulpix, you're fine. If you're playing against a Metagross, they're likely to start a Beldum and you're going to be okay. If you're playing against a Gardevoir, they're likely to start a Ralts and you're going to be okay. Most decks, unless they start Tapu Lele, aren't going to be starting with a huge HP Pokemon. In comes Marshadow. Yes, it's a lot to do, but you know what, ladies and gentlemen? It could work. It's a lot to ask for, but it could work. But then again, I'm just telling you about one particular over-the-top, donking way of rolling with Marshadow. Hitting 110 with a Fighting Fury, about 130 with a Choice Band, or in Expanded, hitting 160, 180. But you don't have to play this version of Marshadow. You can tech in a whole bunch of other attacks to use instead. Maybe you still place a Viper, but you text in something like a Guardians Rising Salazzle to give yourself a bit more beef in the mid to late game. All I know is there are many fun things you can do with Marshadow. This is just one simple example. You're not gonna get 180 on turn 1 all that often, but sometimes you might. And especially in Expanded, if you're playing stuff like Bicycle and Acrobike and Roller Skates, you can be drawing cards without playing Pokemon, and maybe in that way you actually can pull off this ridiculous donking and have yourselves a good time. Although, to be honest, in Expanded, you've got the whole Night March with Pumpkaboo thing going on, and then you're using a 2-price Pokemon that's weak to Pumpkaboo and is weak to Garbodor. Seems like not the cleverest idea. But ladies and gentlemen, this was not supposed to be the best deck ever. We were looking at dumb things to do with Marshadow. This was a dumb thing to do with Marshadow. But like I said at the beginning of the video, Marshadow is so adaptive. This is not the only dumb thing we can do with Marshadow. So stick your ideas down in the comments and maybe we'll do another Marshadow video in the near future. But with Pheromosa being revealed lately, I have got donking on the brain and this is the video I wanted to record. So I did. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. That's where the live action happens. If you want to support the channel, you can do so at patreon.com/PTCG Radio. If you want to get some live action, make sure you're following at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. And by far, the most important thing as always is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.